What's going on, good people of the internet? It is time once again for Comics Unmasked, the podcast where a bunch of folks shoot the breeze and talk about comic books and such. It feels so good to be back, and this is my first interview after like several years, so I'm very excited to have the pleasure to sit down with Letson, the writer of Mr. Terrific Year One. Was so thankful for this opportunity to sit down with Mr. Letson and talk about this run. This miniseries means so much to me as somebody who is passionate about black characters, who has followed Mr. Terrific in the background of books for years. So I am really excited for you guys to listen to this, and I hope you guys enjoy. Multi-Peabody Award winning, multiple journalism awards. Before we even like get into all of that, like for you to just have so many accolades, Mr. Al Letson, thank you for coming on the show, being our first guest on Comics Unmasked. Like this is like I said before we started, a rare treat because your background exceeds just comics. Like this is like you've only done a few things in regards to comic books, but you have been writing and doing things when it comes to like journalism and literature for years. So thank you so much for being on this show.
Oh man, it is such a pleasure and an honor to be on the show. And dude, you have a voice for radio. Like
Everyone said that for years, man. That's what made me go into this originally. Like I've been
I'm
comics,
so glad you're
I've
in
done video
it.
game stuff, and this is me coming back to comics because I care about the culture. I care about this. So like, thank you a lot for that.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely, man.
But like before, like I want to go over everything. But like the
Okay.
first thing I wanted to dive into was like your origins and what got you into writing. Like not only just comics, but like everything in general. Like what made you pick up a pen for the first time?
Yeah, actually, it was comics. I am dyslexic, and when I was younger, they didn't have the same type of tools that they have now to help kids with dyslexia. I mean, I live in Jacksonville, Florida, and there's literally a school here that's dedicated to helping kids
Oh
with
wow.
dyslexia. There was none of those resources when I was a kid. So I would go to my aunt, who is an actual saint, and she was a school teacher. And every like Saturday and Sunday, I would go to her house and we would work on my reading. And she had these like bad Dick and Jane books that I hated as a kid. I hated those books so bad. And then one day, my uncle came in, and we're talking like I'm probably like 6 or 7.
Mm.
One day, my uncle comes in with a stack of like comic books, and he said, "Here, kid, try these out."
Mm.
And those comic books, like that moment, I can look back at it, and I remember like the wonder I had. And it was a reprint of Captain America being pulled from the ice. There was
Okay.
Spider-Man comics in there, and I think there was a Green Lantern comic. But the one that really got me was seeing what was his name? Giant Man's hand pull
Yeah,
Steve
I've seen
Rogers
that a
into
few
the
times.
sub.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that like man, that like changed the trajectory of my life because suddenly like um reading was fun.
Mm.
Reading was
Yeah.
cool. And so I just started reading a lot. And because I was dyslexic, I read slower than everybody else, but comic books I could like just dive all in, and I just, completely fell in love, became a fanboy, and that really led me to like writing and drawing my own comics as a kid, which led me to, writing other things and moving into different not genres, but different methods of writing, different avenues of writing.
It's crazy that like you were able to have the resources that you did because so many times I hear stories of in our own community like when it comes to black culture we frown upon addressing things like dyslexia. You just keep
Yeah,
like that the toxic masculinity like creeps in and you're just told, oh, get over it, just figure it out. And that's why even kind of like the reading epidemic we're dealing with right now in the country. So it's crazy
sure.
that you had those resources.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, my aunt was an amazing teacher. She's still an amazing aunt, but she's long retired now.
Right.
But yeah, like she was not gonna let me fall through the cracks. Like she made sure that that I was going to, by hook or by crook.
Mm.
And she would say that to me, by hook or by crook, we're gonna get this done. So yeah, like that's that. I'll be forever grateful for her. I'm waiting for the trade of Mr. Terrific to come out so I can send it to her. Because I know if I send her single issues, she's gonna be like, what is this now?
Like this is so short. Like what is this?
Right, right, exactly, exactly.
I want to touch on that later. Actually, you bring up a really good point about the medium, so I'm going to circle back to that because that's in my bullet points here. But that actually like circles into what is so important that I care about is you being somebody that is influential, but also a writer and a like someone who is on the mic, so to speak, in like black culture. What does that mean to you when it comes to being able to say, I'm reporting on things, I'm on the ground? You were even at a protest and you were able to say that
Yeah.
you were defending and speaking on what matters. What does that mean to you as someone who's been seeing so many things throughout the years as somebody in the culture?
Yeah, I mean, I think I take it as I take what I do in journalism as kind of a sacred. I don't want to say duty, but I just feel like it's a little bit of a sacred calling. I did not like start off wanting to be in journalism, but when I found myself in it, I always had a lot of reverence for journalism, especially because look, I'm like 53, and when I was growing up. Um, the way the world was and the way journalism was very different than today.
Yeah.
Like, I think that like we tend to get, look up to pundits now
Mhm.
because pundits are like, channeling our rage or whatever. But when I was younger, like, heroes were like Edward R. Murrow, and like I would watch Tom Brokaw on TV every night. Dan Rather, like those guys, I really kind of looked up to. So when I got into journalism, I just had a really deep understanding of all the people behind me and all the black journalists behind me,
Yeah.
and the struggles that they went through. And then I feel like, you know, I recently read there's a journalism textbook that they're teaching using to teach in J school now, and I am in that textbook. I had no idea. A friend of
What?
mine like said said to me like, "Hey, you're in this textbook," and so I went out and got it, of course. And they had a quote from me from 2018, 2017. And I don't know who I was talking to. I guess I was no, I was talking to the LA Times. I do not remember this at all. But in the quote, talked about how I think that I don't get bothered by journalism being an act of like of journalism being activism, because I believe that journalists do the work they do because they want the world to be a better place,
Yeah.
and so and I am actively pushing for the world to be a better place, and I'm specifically, a lot of my focus. Has been on black people because I want the world to be a better place for black folks,
Most definitely. Yeah.
for my people. So, but also for everybody else. But because I'm black, I am intimately familiar with what's going on in the community. So for me, it's a huge honor, and also a huge weight to carry. Like, I think about it all the time.
Yeah, that definitely makes a really good point, especially because like when growing up, it was I looked up to a lot of writers when it comes to just comic books. But then I would see Don Lemon every night, and I would be
Right.
so caring about the fact that he was whether he's divisive or not. The idea that he's up there as a black queer man, being able to like speak on the news, and he was even deplatformed. The idea of deplatforming became popular around that time. Like have like is it better for you mentally that you have your own platform rather than having to work in somebody else's box? You control that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, the show that I work for, I don't like I don't own. I help build it, but I'm definitely like an employee of Mother Jones. Because it's Reveal from the Center for Investigative Reporting. And Mother Jones is a part of that. So I
Right.
am an employee of that. That being said, the difference of being with a for lack of better terms, like a grassroots kind of independent media
Mhm.
gives me a lot more leeway than if I was with CNN or ABC or anything like that. And I'd far prefer working in the lane that I work in now because I mean somebody, I think he's with ABC. A journalist said that Stephen Miller is a hate monger, and he lost his job. I think if you look at the definition, Stephen Miller fits it.
Yeah.
Like there was a journalist at MSNBC who lost his job from just talking about Charlie Kirk,
Yeah.
and not even in and just stating the
Like you
facts.
could, there
Um,
was the one woman who quoted him, just like reported
yes,
on the quote, but she
right,
was like fired. Like the idea of that is
right.
insane.
It's insane, and I think that like less of that happens in independent media. So I'm definitely like super happy and proud to be working with the team I work with, and the fact that like I have a lot of leeway, but I also think that like having a lot of leeway comes with a lot of responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Like you got to figure out like what spaces and what you want to say to make the most impact.
That makes a lot of sense because, like, I guess the better way to phrase it is you didn't make the box, but you at least like you helped mold it. You helped create
Yep.
like it's almost like you're a packer at Amazon. Like you end up like putting the fins where they need to go, and you
Right.
helped like create the boundaries. Because like I don't see Mother Jones being like, no, you can't just say some outlandish stuff and we won't back you. But I feel like as long as you're not going too out of pocket, they'll still have your back in that sense.
Yeah. And as long as like, the thing with what we do that makes us different than say like, individual journalists who like have their own platform, like Don Lemon, who like look, I'm a Don Lemon fan.
Mhm.
Um I don't know like the fact checking that Don Lemon goes through now that he's solo. Maybe he does have a whole fact checking apparatus. I don't know, but
Mhm.
I know a lot of people they can't afford that.
Yeah.
With Mother Jones and the Center for Investigative Reporting, like we have whole, three or four people that work on fact checking. We have a lawyer that goes through all of our stuff to make sure it's legally sound. And so, as long as I depend on those people to make sure that what I am saying is factual and honest, then, I can say what I need to say.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah. So the thing that I'm really passionate about when it comes to the current state of comic books is the like because we kind of touched on a little bit the idea of black media, but the importance of black characters. And you have the esteemed privilege of writing one of the few black characters that is now in the spotlight more so because like we saw Michael Holt sort of be in the like the space a little bit because of Arrow. That was like a nice little time, and like even Dwayne McDuffie, which we'll circle back to him, the idea of him pushing for him to be in the Justice League Unlimited TV show. But what does that mean to you to step into the boundaries of him as a character with the importance that he has now? Because you had him on Arrow, you had him in the Superman movie. What does that mean for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it, like the esteemed privilege. Like it's mind blowing, and if I think about it too long, I'll get choked up, because, uh, like I love this character, but I'm also really cognizant of all the shoulders that I stand on,
Right.
including and really maybe importantly to my personal story, Dwayne McDuffie. Like many, many, many years ago when I was trying to break into comics, um, and I wish I still had the email. It was an old AOL account, and I
Oh,
cannot find that. But so this is way
I mean,
back.
Yahoo owns
But
AOL now. You might be able to find it.
yeah, I've looked. I can't like it doesn't. It only goes so
Oh,
back
okay.
so far. But a good friend of mine was friends with Dwayne,
Wow.
and she introduced me to Dwayne. And Dwayne, he was not my mentor, but I would say he gave me a lot of advice
Hmm.
when I was trying to get in. Like he told me, like you need to do this, this, and this if you want to get in, and you need to keep writing, and you need to do blah blah blah. And he took time out to talk to me, who was like nobody, hadn't published anything, hadn't done anything, to just really kind of school me in the comic book stuff. And I believe he introduced me to one of his best friends who I still talk to occasionally. Every now and then I just shoot him a email, or he'll you know listen to Reveal and send me an email.
Hmm.
But so like, standing on those guys' shoulders, standing on everything that like, that, not just Dwayne, but like the whole pantheon of black creators from Christopher Priest to Dennis Cowan to like
I was
all
gonna
these
get to
guys that
Dennis. I'm
like
excited to talk about
yeah.
that.
Oh my God. Like one of my favorite pictures at a con is like me with Dennis,
I
and then
gotta
Dennis
see
works on the
that.
book. And
Oh,
it's just like, it's so yeah, man, it is an extreme privilege. I think that, what I thought about a lot when this opportunity came my way is that I thought that Mr. Terrific, and this is no disrespect to anybody that has written him
right.
at all. Because again, like not only am I standing on like the shoulders of the great Dwayne McDuffie and Dennis, but like John Oslander who wrote
It was like his
the
first issue. It was a signature
right,
issue of all
exactly.
things.
Exactly. So like I'm standing on all of this, giving love to everybody. I just felt like I wanted Mr. Terrific to feel like he had the black experience.
Yes.
Um, Not just like he's a superhero, but that he's a superhero that carries this black experience with him. And I felt like that was the thing that was missing from a lot of the stuff that I
For
read,
sure.
and I wanted to find a way to weave that in. And I love like, really like my entryway to how I wanted to write this character was really Tom King, Strange Adventures. He did a great job with Mr. Terrific.
Right.
My Mr. Terrific is different than his Mr.
Okay.
Terrific, but I think that his Mr. Terrific gave me an entry
Like it
point to
laid the
figure out.
groundwork a little bit.
Right, exactly. Like I understood the character from the way Tom wrote him, where before I wasn't sure I really understood who this guy was. And then when I read Strange Adventures, it was like, oh, I get it.
Right.
I get it.
I feel like
And so like,
with Terrifics,
go
though,
ahead.
I'm sorry. Like, I feel like with the Terrifics, it felt
Hmm.
like DC was trying so hard to make like him and like Phantom Girl and Metamorpho and Plas be like a knockoff Fantastic Four
Yeah,
because you
totally.
had that and Sideways and something else that was like trying to be that like Marvel adjacent or Marvel like reflection because there was that time period where Fox owned the Fantastic Four, so the FF didn't have a book, so DC was trying to capitalize on that, and the Terrifics felt like it just wasn't real. It felt like a fever dream, and even though I was collecting it every week, I got to like the last issue of issue 30. It felt like how is this possible that Michael Holt is able to be in the forefront this long after not having anything for years?
Yeah. I mean, like, I like the Terrifics. I like the Terrifics. I just didn't feel like I really grasped who Michael was in that. And the thing is it's really tricky when you're doing a team book
Yeah.
and you've got to service everybody, right? And so like figuring out how to do it. And I didn't finish the run. So and I know at some point in the run he introduced Paula from a different
Yeah, that was
time.
weird.
Yeah, like I didn't get to read that, so I don't know how all that stuff played out. I liked it though, but I just felt like there was more for me to play with just doing a single
Mhm.
when I look at Mr. Terrific Year One, what I wanted to do was to give him roots in his blackness as a black man,
Yes.
like but also really understand who the character was.
Mhm.
So like in issue 5, he's talking about his dad. Like
Yeah.
I felt like it was really important to like, oh, this guy had a father, this guy had a mother, this
Mhm.
guy had a life before he became Mr. Terrific, and he brings all those experiences with him.
Yeah, and like what I thought was so cool and what I kind of like really enjoyed was Dre. Dre felt very much like something that it reminded me of the Olympian Butch Reynolds because I've met him. I was in his
Hmm.
program
Hmm.
growing up, and it felt like you slid a little bit of history of the culture in there a little bit, but you
Yeah.
gave him someone to pull him up by the bootstraps and be like, you can't live in depression forever. Paula wouldn't want this. You can't just live in this. And I love that you sort of take the Ostrander one issue and expand it. You don't just like rewrite the whole thing like certain like authors are really well known to do. You don't just like try to rewrite the whole playbook. A perfect example is Scott Snyder with Zero Year with Batman, like redoing the whole thing involving the Riddler and this, that, and the third. You just sort of like said, what if we just like make this bigger and make it to where like it's like more going on in the background, and there's a whole plot going on. Like I like that you did that and you used the characters that you had. I mean, like it made it really fit naturally.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like the gift of Mr. Terrific not being used a lot
You have a lot of
is
room to
that
play.
like a lot of room to play, a lot of room to play. Like, with Scott and when he did Zero Year, I feel like what Scott was trying to do was something new with Batman because he's been done so many
Yeah.
damn times. Like like you can't keep sticking to the same origin. You got to try
Hmm.
stuff. So like I totally get why he went in that direction. I think with Mr. Terrific was wide open.
Hmm.
And then I thought, like, because I am a comic nerd, because I am very much in the community, I don't like going on boards and comments, and I mean mostly like on TikToks. I just like stuff.
Right.
Very rarely well, when people are talking about my run of Mr. Terrific, I will respond,
That's
but
how this
mostly.
happened.
Yeah, that's how this all worked out, right? But mostly, I just like heart stuff that I like and like dope. But I am a part of the culture. I
Hmm.
I get it. And what I knew is that there were going to be some real old heads who were not crazy about the book if we did not give the history that's already been laid out love.
Hmm.
And look, I love Ostlander's Spectre and all of that stuff. So I just wanted to take the elements that were there and figure out, like, the other thing that was really clear to me is that because Michael's origin is told in the Spectre, it's told really from the viewpoint of the Spectre.
Yeah.
I wanted to give it to Michael
Yeah.
and let him grow. And so, like, and you're 100% right. Like, I thought about, like, in the idea of trying to get to the place where where Michael's, blackness is not like this added on thing, but it's like it's
Yes.
just a part of who he is. To me, it felt the best way to do that is like the friendship he has with Dre. To like start it off that like you are listening to two black men, even though one is depressed and the other is like trying to pull him out of it. Like
The
they very much
camaraderie
have this.
back and forth.
Exactly. Exactly. Like because that's how black people talk to each other. That's
Mhm.
how we do. We tease each other.
Like the fact that he used his own AI against him. Like, how long have you been in here? Really?
Right. Right, exactly. So like all of that stuff, like that was intentional. That was like me thinking about like how to navigate this thing.
Excellent. And like the one thing that I really enjoy is that I've kind of like been talking about this on the first couple episodes, and I even said this about Cody Ziegler's Miles Morales right now because yes, we
Mm,
have the people who created these characters, these people like similar to how Stan Lee created a Black Panther. You have these people who had a passion; they wanted to give us representation. You had Bendis who created Miles, and then you had Ostrander who created Michael here. But like the idea that maybe it's like it's okay to pass the baton, and like while you may be the one who opens the door, maybe somebody else steps through it and goes, this is what needs to be done to give them a voice, because both you and Cody Ziegler have done this thing where you've given that black voice to these characters, you've given that like real authenticity to them that you don't see a lot in comics. You don't see that a lot where it feels more organic to like have a conversation with these characters. That's what I really enjoyed, because before, like, Michael feels really like I wouldn't say like because obviously like there is the side of him that is autistic coded, but you still see him sort of being very stiff with other writers.
yeah.
But even when Dwayne would write him on Justice League, he felt a little bit more organic. He felt a little bit
Yeah.
more like succinct. And even when they did the Fatal Five movie years later after his passing, they made sure that Mr. Terrific had that little bit of energy to him. So that idea that you're infusing the blackness into the character where other people just opened the door for the character.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that like those people that open the door, like I can't tell you how much love and appreciation I have for Michael Bendis making Miles
Yes.
Morales. Like, I mean, you know, I actually met him once, and I think it was before Miles. I'm uh I'm friends with Matt Faction,
Oh wow.
and before I was friends with Matt Faction, I worked with Matt Faction for like 2 years on a project. But before I was friends with Matt, I was interviewing him, and Bendis lives close, and so like they were all together. So I think I met.
Oh.
I know I met Bendis then. It was crazy, dude. It was like Matt Fraction, Kelly Sue, two of my favorite
Right.
writers, and then Bendis walks in, my third favorite writer. Then Greg Rucka walks in.
What?
It was like I was like literally I was there for like 10 minutes. I was like, I do not belong.
It's like, do you know Greg? Do you know Brian?
right,
They just kept
right.
going for you.
Dude, I was so like, I'm not worthy. I'm going to leave. Like but but no, man, like I'm just so grateful that that people like Bendis and Oslander like and Stan Lee, of course, like opened up the door because I wonder if that door could have been opened, like if I came up with a Black Spider-Man,
Mm,
Miles Morales, I don't know if Marvel would have been interested in doing it.
exactly.
So it's like you need those people to open up the door. And I think like to a person, I think that they would all, and I don't want to speak for anybody, but I feel like with Bendis, I've read enough of his interviews to know that like I think he loves the
Oh, for
idea
sure.
of black folks, taking it over and like really like, doing what Cody's doing, which is great. So yeah, like it's an interesting thing. I mean, we live in this world where especially in this community,
Yes.
the way you move forward and how thoughtful you are about it is the only way you're going to have success. Like you can't like just like there are moves that have been made that I think like still to this day that I will not name characters or creators because I think everybody is trying their absolute hardest to make great stuff.
Yes.
But I think that there are characters that the thought process was not fully there, and it's not fully there in the comics,
Right.
and it's also not fully there in the movies and TV shows,
Mm,
and you can see it because it doesn't wrestle
yeah.
with what it means to be a black person in this costume,
Mm,
right? I feel like that has to be the thing you wrestle with the whole time. Whereas like and I think with Michael Holt, because like yes, technically he did take the mantle from somebody else. But
he's
really
made it his
because
own.
like
Like, yeah, Terry
he
did his
made it his
thing, but
own.
like he's made it his own because Terry was just like a fisticuffs kind of guy. It reminds me
Right.
of the transparency of Night Owl and Watchmen, where like you had the
Yes.
original who was just a fisticuffs kind of person, and then Dan stepped in and made it more with the technology. So you're having that same dichotomy in a way.
Right, right, exactly. And because he was so golden age, Mr. Terrific, the original Mr. Terrific. So now like having Michael come in, like it's a really great update. But I think that like what I was like I said before, like not you don't have to wrestle as much. You just have to imbue
Mhm.
the idea of like what it is to be a black man in it.
Right, and like a perfect example, and like I was kind of one of my bigger TikToks that blew up like a couple of years ago was it feels like Bendis keeps trying to earn his entry into the cookout, but he did it in such a graceful way where he had Miles, he had Riri, but then he was just kind of like, Eve, go ahead, write Riri, go ahead,
What do you
like
think?
do your thing, like and the way that like you can even say Riri, heck, even another white voice like Jim Zub took Riri in on Champions, like just letting someone
Yep.
else let it breathe a little bit and being able to
Yeah,
say your life experience can do great wonders with things. Heck,
absolutely.
you could even say like someone that you included in this book, Jenny Isabella, came like was groundbreaking, stopped DC from doing a horrible decision back in the day with
Hmm.
the Black Bomber and came forward with Black Lightning and created something unique. She was able to then create that story of Jefferson, and you got to include Jefferson in this miniseries and
Yes.
tie him closer to Michael. And I thought that way, as
Yes.
someone who loves Jefferson as a character, has like one of my first ever comics I picked up as a kid was Black Lightning back in the day. So to see that like infusion of those two together was meant so much to me. Like, what was that like? Being able to say like I'm gonna take this person that is like the first ever black hero to have a story at DC
Yeah.
and put him like in this book. Like, how did that feel for that?
Yeah, so I got to give credit where credit is due. My editors on this book, Andrea Andrea. Oh my goodness, why am I blanking on her name? Marquise. I'm blanking on everybody's name. Like Andrea Shea and Marquise Draper. Sorry. Yeah, my editors, Andrea Shea and Marquise Draper. They were so ridiculously excellent. Like I can't tell you the entire team like that worked on this book. Like I want to make comics with them for the rest of my life because they every single one of them were absolutely amazing. And so when I pitched this to Andrea, and Andrea and I have a long relationship. Like back in 2016, I think I was a part of DC's new writers program, and
Yes.
Andrea, I think she was like a very junior editor at that point, and she
Mhm.
was tasked with being a part of it. She was great, and we just maintain our friendship over the years. So when I had the Mr. Terrific idea and everything, I came to her, and then she brought Marquise in because Marquise, like Andrea is kind of working on Elseworlds and Black Label stuff, and
Mhm.
Marquise is dead in the JLU and all that stuff. So she brought him in to like make sure we're up to date with where everything is in the current universe. And it was Marquise who was like, what would be really really dope is if we partnered Mr. Terrific and Black Lightning, if we figured out a way how to weave them into it.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, like, that's a good idea. And then Marquise was like, I mean, they both were Olympians, so we should just like connect that. And I thought, that's a good idea. And so that's how it came about. And then once that came about, what I realized also in working with it is that like, I kind of like the idea of the fact that maybe they weren't so close.
Right.
At and so like, then the idea came up about why they weren't
And
close
with the
and that
bitterness a little
this
bit in the mix there.
yeah. Yeah, bitterness. So like because you want characters to like go through shit,
Mm.
right? You want characters to like to be like real people who have like, look, I have people that I love deeply and haven't talked to in years.
Right.
And so like I wanted to like figure out that kind of thing. And so we just weaved it all in and like, at the end of at the end of issue 2, um when Jefferson shows up, it's like to me, like as a writer, it's like, okay, so this is the promise to the reader
We're gonna get
that
that.
like we're gonna get it. We're gonna get to it. Hold on, rock with me.
Right.
We're gonna get to it. And so, it's an absolute pleasure to like take that character and writing that character. Like I just had a joy. Like I understood who Michael was when I started writing him. I wasn't sure who Jefferson was
Right.
until I got to that the last page of issue 2. I was like, oh, I know this guy. Oh, this is gonna be good. So yeah, so it's been a good time.
Like it blows me away because like you mentioned why they're not entirely comfortable with each other, and it makes me want to see them in present day, like because there's something to be said about how there's that iconic thing that's infamous now online of all the black heroes at the cookout when like Steve and everybody shows up, and it's like that doesn't feel natural. Like it could be a thing occasionally at Marvel where like all the black heroes get together, and like to this day, despite its cancellation, Black Panther and the Crew could have been a great pitch. It could have been great.
Yeah,
Like something
totally,
could have vibe.
totally.
And like we even saw recently with the Power Company, DC tried to get that going, but it didn't really like resonate or didn't was the sales weren't there. But I would love to see like Michael and Jefferson raising the next generation of black youth in the DC universe.
I I won't say everything, but I have a pitch that is kind of close to that. But it's a little different. It's a little different. I'll tell you
Okay,
offline.
okay, okay.
But
Like, okay, the
but
reason why I say that is because, like, one thing that I've always been frustrated by, and like this, like, this is no hate to Brian Hill, but one thing that I've always bothered me was around, like, it was like 2018, 2019, was the Batman and the Outsiders that had Jefferson and had Katana, Cassandra Cain, and Duke Thomas, and it felt like but Batman and the minorities. It felt like really weird, and it felt like why is Batman a part of this when it could just be Jefferson, the school teacher, the one who did mentor during Nightwing's
right.
time on The Outsiders. Like, why not have like two of the black leads of your universe be the grounded figures and raise the next generation of black like youth? Because the Power Company, that was a great idea. I just feel
Yeah.
like it comes at a time that I want to talk to you about where it's like it feels like multiple publishers don't really understand the idea that black folks or just marginalized people in general don't have the extra funds to slide to the comic shop every week and grab a book, or like, and like to your point about your aunt, like a trade is so much more approachable to
Yep.
somebody. And while yes, people want ongoing series, maybe having the ability to like have an immunity similar to how Black Panther had around the movie, where you give it time to breathe, you allow collections to form. Like, I feel as if that's the kind of energy that black heroes need in the DC universe right now.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that like, there's a couple things to think about. And one of those, the number one that is unfortunate but very true, is that it's so much about sales
Yes.
and so much about like how a character or a book has done in the past. I can't tell you how many times I've brought up, "Hey, what about this?" And the response is, "That didn't sell very well last time." So,
Uh,
you know, so it's like you get into that spot.
mhm.
I think this is my take, and you can take my take with a grain of salt.
Okay.
Like literally, this is my first big thing with DC.
Mhm.
Everything else I've done has been self-published that literally five people have read. So my depth and knowledge of publishing comics and all of that is very limited. But I would say what I think the path to go is that I think that when you have Power Company and it's all black heroes, I think a lot of white fanboys look at it and think that's not for me, and so
Mhm.
therefore they don't buy it. And I think what you have to do is think about ways to grab that audience as well.
Mhm.
And so that means grabbing those characters, and maybe you don't take a Power Company and it's just all black characters. You figure out a way that you do something that, or tell a story or use characters that grab those young not even white guys, but that grab white audiences that maybe would look at a book and say, well, that's not for me. Because, the thing about America is that, like, black folks have always engaged in white popular culture because
Yes.
it's the dominant culture around us, right? So
Right.
it's like, it's when I was a kid, Peter Parker was my guy.
Mhm.
Like it wasn't like I didn't like Peter Parker because he was white, Peter Parker was
It
my
was the
guy.
default.
When Miles, right, it was the default. When Miles came around, I was like, oh man, like that guy looks like
Yeah.
me. Like that's great. And I dove in, right?
Mhm.
But I had no problem with Peter Parker. I think that like when we're talking about this society though, that white people have had a different experience of America,
Mhm.
and they don't necessarily have to engage in black pop culture or black comic books or whatever. I think that a lot of times they can look at them and say like, "Oh, that's not for me."
Right.
When that's not the truth, but that's the way they can perceive it. So I think that in order to cross that gap, we have to think about ways, we have to get creative
Mhm.
and think about ways. So like this idea that I have, this pitch that I have, I would just say that like I thought about that, it, you know, from the top. I was like, so how would I do a mini series that could get people that like are reading Superman or reading Green Lantern that normally wouldn't read like Black Lightning and Mr. Terrific team up? Like, how could I get them in
Mhm.
it? And that's where my kind of thought process is.
Right.
I know some people don't like that thought. They would prefer like, hey, like let's just do Power Company. But my thought
Yeah.
is like we got to think. We got to
You have to figure out
figure out new
how to
ways.
maneuver the landscape because I even talked to Ella McKinney a few years ago about her run on Nubia where she like had to
Hmm.
sort of include some things, but because of Future State being there, it gave her that avenue to tell a what if story because it was a smaller like time. But like
Right.
I think the issue is that you raise a good point of that they don't have to approach it, but it's like you saw like what happened with Black Panther and the crew where the pre-order sales were so low. It went from being an ongoing that got greenlit because of the Amazon sales of the trade for Black Panther Volume 1, and then it got turned to 6 issues because the pre orders were so low. And
Right.
I wonder if the landscape would be different if we actually cared about digital more, if we cared about trades more, and
Yeah.
we valued it more than just saying, if you pre order this, it has legs. If you didn't pre order it, it's going in the can. Like,
Yeah.
one thing, what's going on with your book, am still searching for the 1 in 25 Dennis Cowan cover. I am still searching for it. I was at Hall of Fame City Comic Con last weekend and was like hitting up multiple booths. Like, I need to find this book. And nobody had it because I was the only one who pre ordered the book at my comic shop. And everyone's like saying the same thing, like, oh, we didn't expect him to blow up after the Superman movie. So, like, no one bought it. And it's like, why?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's what's crazy to me is like what will, and I would say like a caveat to my answer before is that I think that Mr. Terrific, and to be quite honest, I have not looked at what numbers are and what it's selling or
Right.
whatever. I just know that like every time I go to a comic shop, it's sold out.
Hmm.
I think Mr. Terrific has done reasonably well because you have the tie-in of the Superman
Right.
movie, which was totally DC's thought,
Uh-huh.
right? Like I pitched this long before I even knew that Mr. Terrific. Now let me rephrase. I pitched this. I had been working on it before I knew that Mr. Terrific was in Superman.
Okay.
And then when I found out he was in Superman, I was like hitting up Andrea going, "Hey, I got something." And she was like, "Hold on. That great thought. Hold on." And then a year later she was like, "Okay, we're ready to go. You ready to pitch?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So it was a very long process. But I do think that like the movie tie-in
Definitely helped.
totally, and with Eddie doing such a great job
Yes.
and making people want more of this character, it was pretty
Well,
easy.
like, and that's even something to talk about there. Eddie Gathegi being able to like redeem himself after being in
Yes.
such a crappy situation where you had a character that was barely ever seen. You had like he was in like I think in one or a few like a small mini series where they revealed Cyclops had another brother and was part of a different
Right.
team, and they were like, "Hey, let's make that character black, even though he had like pale
Yeah.
white skin and was like almost like a full mutant. Let's make him
Yeah.
black." And they're like, "Oh, we're gonna off him in this horrible way." But then like he's even said in interviews where he said he was never gonna do another superhero movie again. But for him to
Yeah.
get that kind of revival, and then you were even able to pay homage to him with the
Yeah.
goddamn Mr. Terrific line, and that was so
Yeah.
cool. Like, what does that mean to you to see him rise up and be able to like redeem himself in that way?
Listen, man, I love Eddie as an actor. I've been watching him for years. Been such a big fan. So bummed out with the way they took Darwin out. Like that
Yes.
just made no sense whatsoever. So like to watch him get some redemption has been like a beautiful thing. And then to watch him like, embody this character and have fun with it. I mean, there are moments in the movie that there's one simple moment that I just love so much. It's when Superman is talking to him and he's like, "Oh, I'm trying to figure out how to get the kaiju out of here. Like, take him somewhere." And Mr. Terrific looks at him
Like,
like,
man, come on.
"Are you stupid?" Like,
Look over the
I just
eyes, like it's
yes,
over.
yes, like so for me, like yeah, it's just it was amazing. I really, really love the Superman movie. I know there are people that like hate it. Go ahead, whatever.
Yeah,
Do
I
your
don't
thing.
understand
I,
that.
I don't like my thing is like because like look, man, for me, um I just like Superman is supposed to make you feel good.
Yes,
He's supposed to make you feel like, when everything is falling down,
he's
this guy is going to have your back. He's there. I saw on Twitter one time that like I think it was, I don't go to Twitter. I saw on Threads. I saw on Threads as someone saying that like the people who don't like this movie have a basic misunderstanding of who Superman is.
Yes.
They think that Superman is a cop.
Yeah.
Batman is a cop. Superman is a paramedic.
Yes.
Superman
Yes.
shows up to save your life. Whereas, like, Bruce wants to beat the hell out of you, So
Yeah.
I, I just love it. I just love it. So, anyway, I love the movie. And as I was, when the movie was over, or not over, but, after I'd watched the movie, I was working on issue five. I was super excited about issue five. And I got to that panel and I was like, hell, I'm gonna do it. And then my editor was like, all right, I love it. I don't know if they're gonna say it's okay. We'll see. You gotta push. We'll see. I was like, all right, let's see. And then she finally wrote me back like a week later. We can do it. I was like, hell yes.
That
Hell
is
yes.
awesome. So I
Yeah.
mentioned it before about the 1 in 25 cover, but like I
Mhm.
have to know because you mentioned Dennis Cowan. Were you able to
Mhm.
talk with him about doing that
No.
cover?
No. I mean, it was like literally, it was the best surprise that the editor gave me.
Oh wow.
Like she emailed me and she was like, I have a surprise for you. Um check this it was it was in a what do they call it? Zip file
Right.
or whatever. She was like, open this zip file and prepare. And I was like, okay. I clicked on the zip pile and I saw it and I'm just gonna be honest. I fucking cried. I was like, Dennis? Oh my God. Oh my God. Because Dennis, ah, I feel like, yeah, man, I've Dennis Cowan did a cover for
Legendary.
my comic. It's just legendary, legendary. So yeah, it was one of the highlights of this run. Super super grateful for it.
It makes me so happy to see because there's always this disconnect that bothers me because while yes Milestone is published by DC, we know that there's been this disconnect for a long time with like black fans who are like, oh, my favorite DC hero is Static, and it's like, but he's not DC. Like you need to have love
Right,
for a DC hero like Black Lightning, like Mr. Terrific.
right,
Like I remember when the
right.
Black Lightning TV show came out, they're like, "Is that Static?" It's like, no, like
Yo,
there's something to be had here. And when I see that Dennis gets opportunities like that to showcase the history of Black heroes in the DC universe, because yes, Milestone, one of the greatest things to ever come out of it, but it is also a victim of sales. When you think back to it,
yeah,
that original run, even the Static run that came out during the New 52, Mr. Terrific's book that came out during the New 52, they were all subject to sales in the worst way possible, where they just could not get sales under them. So for him to
yeah,
sort of like be interwoven into this means so much to me as someone who's been following. Like that's an OG 80s
yeah.
comic store poster behind me. I went on eBay and found that years ago. So like to
Wow.
see that and see if
Yep.
I'm going to find that cover because for y'all to be interwoven together for the series is insane to me.
Yeah, I just man, listen, Dennis is the goat, and to have him do a cover, I just no words. It's just mind blowing to me. I can't. I when I got the physical cover and looked at it, I just thought like, this is my life. I can't believe this is little Alfie, who like was growing up reading comic, would never believe this. You could never tell him, "Hey, man, one day we're gonna write this book and Dennis Cowan is gonna do a cover." Like, what? No, crazy.
That is amazing, man. Like, okay, so the one thing that I always like to do at the end of every show is a closing statement, and I wanted to tailor yours specifically because there, like, obviously sales are an issue. Obviously, that like there's that dichotomy in like when it comes to comics where like the sales aren't always there. But what do you want to leave not only your peers in when it comes to like comics, but also the fans who are coming into comics for the first time and are trying to find where they fit in. But like, what do you want to leave Black comic fans with? Like at the end of all this.
Yeah, I mean, I want to leave them with like, I see you, because I am you. I am like, we are one and the same. and that in this crazy dystopian timeline that we are currently living in, there's no better escape, but also a place that, like, not just an escape, but I think that the great thing that comics do is that, like, it can speak to that thing inside you that tells you, like, no matter what, keep fighting. Even if that fight is like small ways that you do it in your daily life. Even if, like, I think, the one thing that I love about Steve Rogers is that in the right hands, Steve Rogers, just like Superman, is a kind human being.
Yes.
And to me, like, that's it. With all the nastiness that's out in the world, like, I just want to fight against that in my way. And one of the biggest ways I can do it is just by being a kind human being that cares about people, the way that, like, Mr. Terrific cares about people. Like,
Yes.
the last couple pages of episode 5 is my statement on being a human being. That, like, like, I am standing up for the little guy because the big guy, they don't need nobody to stand up for them. They are
Right.
they're in the bully pulpit. But so to me, like, comics is this great thing of, like, escapism, but also a reinforcement of all that's good in us.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that, like, diving into media like that right now is essential to survive this dystopian timeline that we are currently stuck in.
That is beautiful, man. Like I just this book has meant so much to me because I remember like digging through JSA books back during the Johns era, like trying to find issues that included Michael. So to see you get this opportunity is insane, and to know that even once this ends, you're still going to be able to write and talk about like literature and media and the world around us. So I do want to thank you for writing this book because it means so much to so many little kids because it's that effect of Miles when he first premiered in Spider-Verse and you saw so many little black kids. Like I saw that they already rolled out a Mr. Terrific Halloween costume and there's going to be
Yeah,
little
yeah.
kids that are going to be trying to be Michael for Halloween. Like you've done an amazing thing here to give them like similar to how when like the TV show was coming out for Black Lightning, they reprinted Black Lightning Year 1. So you
Yeah.
kind of have the opportunity to be a little kid's first like entry into Mr. Terrific in a lot of ways.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And, like, dude, I wrote this book for you. So I'm so glad that it found a home with you, man. That's that you made my day.
That means a lot, man.